it's a really wonderful way for a child to come to understand these theories and these philosophies through the prism of an individual, and so they can form an emotional attachment with Thomas Sowell, which is incredible that a 7-year-old can form an emotional attachment to Thomas Sowell, but that's what happens.
My guest today is Bethany Mandel, editor of the Heroes of Liberty children's book series. Bethany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. So we have actually spoken with you relatively recently, but I wanted to get an update. When we last spoke to you, Facebook had censored the advertising campaign for your books.
Yeah.
Whatever happened with that?
So thanks to the intercession of a number of members of Congress, and only because members of Congress got involved, Facebook decided, oops, sorry, that was a mistake. We didn't mean to. The mistakes fall in one direction and one direction only, but they actually reinstated us, and it was wonderful, sort of. In a weird way, it was a great news item for us because we got on the radars of so many conservatives who were understandably and justifiably really outraged at what Facebook had done, because they sort of deemed us as disruptive content and didn't like what we were doing, and so it got on the radar of a lot of conservatives who said, that's an incredible message, that's incredible work, and we want to support it. And so ultimately it worked out okay.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that things went well with that, because it was a little scary when we heard that Facebook had just decided that it was disruptive content. So you did find that it gave you a bump. Yeah,
no, it gave us a huge bump. And thankfully, we're able to still run ads on Instagram and Facebook itself, which is, small business. We're just starting out. That was a really big hit. And thank God, we're able to still advertise to the audiences that are interested in our product.
Excellent. So since the books have been out for a little bit now, what has the reception been from parents, from kids, what's the reception been?
It's amazing. So people have sort of realized that, this was a huge void in the marketplace that we didn't realize existed, and I want to teach my children about American values, and a wholesome book that teaches them about Ronald Reagan and Thomas Sowell and everything that they believed in. And we tell these stories and we tell what these people believed in and what they represented, but it's a really wonderful way for a child to come to understand these theories and these philosophies through the prism of an individual, and so they can form an emotional attachment with Thomas Sowell, which is incredible that a 7-year-old can form an emotional attachment to Thomas Sowell, but that's what happens. My kids, so we live in Washington, D.C., and my kids are now sort of trying to stake out the SCOTUS to meet Amy Coney Barrett, because my daughter, she's 8 years old and she wants to have a big family, and she also has all of these career aspirations, and our Amy Coney Barrett book is her window into seeing it's possible. You can have 6 children and be wildly politically, not politically, but wildly professionally successful. Right. So it's been really nice for people to have that experience with their kids of meeting Ronald Reagan and Thomas Sowell and John Wayne and all of these heroes that are wonderful, and sharing their stories and sharing their messaging. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Now, when we had last spoken, you had released an initial round of these books. Who have you released since the initial round of people?
Yeah. So the first 3 were Thomas Sowell, Ronald Reagan, and Amy Coney Barrett, and then we have a 1-month plan. So we have a subscription plan that folks can get a book every month. And so our February book of the month was John Wayne, and in March it will be Alexander Hamilton. And then coming up in the future, we'll have Margaret Thatcher, Winston Churchill, Rush Limbaugh, Douglas MacArthur is another one. So we're going to have really incredible voices and stories to tell our kids.
That is so awesome. And I think that it's so important to have these purely American models of this is what Americans are. These are good people. Yeah.
And freedom lovers too. I mean, Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher, they're British, but the love of liberty extends, doesn't matter where you are.
Right. So have you managed to get any of these books into the school system?
Not yet. We're hoping to. So we were contacted by a small Christian classical school in the Midwest, and one of the dads just bought them on his own and brought them to the school librarian and said, "Can you stock them?" And the librarian was happy to do so. I don't imagine that we'd have the same reception in Orange County Public Schools, but we're going to try.
Sure. And I think that's so good that you're willing to put that out there. So we have spoken briefly on the show about what the options were to purchase these. You could buy them individually, you could buy them, but we were actually speaking before this, and you said that the most popular subscription option was the 2-year subscription option.
Yes.
And that's just so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel that?
I mean, it's job security for us for sure. I'm not going to lie to you. But I mean, it's, people are really enthusiastic about the product and about the mission, and I think that that's really important. Like we heard, especially after the Facebook cancellation, we heard from so many people who said, I have grandkids and I want to put these books in their hands, and I want this company to last. I mean, we're a literary startup, and so that vote of approval and that sort of vote of confidence from people was just really powerful and really moving for us.
Okay. How has the left responded to your books now that they've become a little more popular?
So surprisingly, we had an item in the New York Times that was pretty positive.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think we put the books in his hands, and I think that made a big difference because when you see the books, it's not brainwashing, and it's beautifully done. It's beautifully written. The illustrations are top notch. We went to the best illustrators that we could find who would do our books without being canceled. So we had to, go to Bulgaria for one of our artists because we had a hard time finding American artists at first. But the stories speak for themselves, and the art really speaks for itself. And it was funny, actually. He had a little bit of in the New York Times, he had a little bit of a dig. He said, some of these lines sound like a Heritage Foundation policy paper, and he meant it as a dig, and I was like, well, thank you very much. Like, that is actually great advertising.
Well, thank you for the free advertising as well, New York Times. So what's next for this project? Are you sticking with books, or are there plans to expand into other types of media?
So as of now, we're sticking to books. We're hoping to develop a box set of Founding Fathers series and also Heroes of War. We're hoping to have, Douglas MacArthur is one of them and Winston Churchill will be another. And then after that, I mean, I would love to do apparel. That's something that I would personally love to do that I'm still trying to sell everyone else on. But we also have little figurines that we're selling as well.
Very nice, very nice. So it sounds like there is a well-rounded thing about this. So, Bethany, before we wrap up, where can people go to pick up some of these books?
Yeah, so it's heroesofliberty.com. We're also available on Amazon, but heroesofliberty.com is the best bet for us and for you as well.
Excellent. That was Bethany Mandel, editor of the Heroes of Liberty children's book series. Bethany, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.